Hello and welcome to another movieboozer.com virtual pubcast. I'm your host, Ken Ekman, and I'm joined by Bill Arsenault.
Hey.
And Hawk Ripjaw will be joining us in a little bit. We've been gone for a couple of weeks, so we have quite a bit to talk about this week. What we're going to do, though, is we're going to concentrate on just the movies that we've seen, not necessarily trying to hit up everything. There have been I think it's been about 2 weeks this time, hasn't it?
About 2 weeks, yeah.
Yeah, we usually try not to miss too many weeks, but which I apologize for. But that said, what we have today to talk about, I'll go ahead and just read the roster. We have The Hitman's Bodyguard, Brigsby Bear, Good Time, Marjorie Prime, and then The Nut Job 2, Nutty by Nature.
Oh, God.
That name just angers me. And
Yes.
a little later, we'll also touch on Marvel's The Defenders, the miniseries, as well as when Hawk Ripjaw gets here, we have our weekly movie exchange, and we'll be talking about Hawk's movie David and Goliath, David versus Goliath, Battle of Faith, also known as David and Goliath in IMDb. It has two different names.
Do we want to talk about the new Best of the Worst episode with the last vampire on Earth?
Well, I mean, without going into too much detail.
I mean, they kind of talked about it at great length, but I mean, that was I remember in the Facebook chat. We have a Facebook chat where we converse about movies, and in it, you not only recommended it, but you said it was like Tommy Wiseau level.
Well, I hadn't seen the movie. What I was recommending is recommending that we all should see that episode, and I'm going to probably see the movie because it is available on Netflix.
Oh, is it on Netflix or on Amazon Prime?
Yeah, it's Amazon Prime. Okay. And, of course, the advantage of Amazon Prime is, it's when it's free streaming, you don't have to, because a movie like that is usually either it's available somewhere free or it's impossible to find.
Yes.
So I was glad to see that that's available because, well, yeah. Why don't we talk about that? Last Vampire on Earth looks to me like one of the most ridiculous movies ever created. You watched the episode, right?
Yeah, I saw it last night, and I got it playing in the background right now. Actually, I have YouTube on Roku, so I'm playing the Best of the Worst playlist on mute, but it's playing in the background visually. So it's on the part where he goes to meet the family for the first time, and they're having KFC chicken for dinner.
Right.
And he talks about how he's learning how to be a blood doctor or something.
Yes.
It's a pretty funny plot. I mean, it's like Twilight, but then they wanted to go a step further. They take it to college. They add a religious element to it. Burn the vampire, that kind of thing. Except it all has this. Based on the clips I saw, it all has this Birdemic / Tommy Wiseau feel to it in terms of lack of understanding of human language.
Yes. And that's really ultimately what makes the best bad movies is the integrity behind it. It's clear that the person making it wanted so badly to make a great movie and lacked every possible element to successfully make that happen, but yet somehow there's an earnestness behind it, and that's what we see in movies like The Room, or movies like the Brainology, so to speak.
Well, yeah, he's in the Brainology. It's a little different though. He is going for something great, but I don't know if it's entirely earnest. I mean, he seems to have a clear bias towards conspiracy, or at least a clear interest towards conspiracy and fear of government. So I think it's almost like his way of doing journalism by fictionalizing certain things. It's almost like
you still call it earnest because that's what he's
okay.
he's
He's genuinely wanting to share this with people.
exactly.
And
This is his mission.
yeah, okay.
He may
He's
not
not like trying to make a quick buck because he knows he can't make a quick buck on it. Maybe.
right. Well, and the funny thing about someone like Neil Breen, for instance, and actually is was his name Vitaly Versace?
Yeah, I think so.
Is if you look at both of their filmographies, they have made a good deal of movies over the last decade. And the fact of the matter is, they keep doing it, and neither of them get any better.
Right. It's the same with the guy who did Samurai Cop. They mentioned on Best of the Worst that on the episode where they did Hollywood Cop that he got worse over the course of his catalog, and in terms of filmmaking ability. And the only positive they could say about Hollywood Cop was that the shots matched each other.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Like the colors, the lighting, that kind of stuff. Is like they go together.
And really, that is what makes a movie a so good it's bad movie work. I mean, Ed Wood, the same thing. The reason Ed Wood's movies are so entertaining is he clearly had a vision and was incompetent enough that he was able to make a hilarious version of that vision come to life.
I would argue there was some talent there with Ed Wood, at least in terms of writing, not the full-blown picture of script writing, but
did you say writing?
Yeah, aspects of writing, like not the full script. Like he wasn't Aaron Sorkin or someone like very good at constructing dialogue and plot, but there would be times when there would be a character that would give off a nice monologue, and you could see that there was effort being put into what the guy was trying to say. So I kind of commend him for that. I'm not saying it was great. I'm saying there's like a glimmer of like he saw movies and understood something about what made some movies good. Not fully understood it, but he kind of got it. He at least had the passion. That comes through clearly. He had the passion to want to make movies because he loved movies, but not necessarily. He didn't quite get like the craft part. He just kind of. He put UFOs on strings and, lit them on fire and did all that kind of, the string would catch on fire, So, he had the equivalent talent of me when I was making video movies back in middle school on VHS, I could have done something better, but I ended up doing basically Ed Wood style stuff. Mm-hmm. It wasn't on purpose. I was actually trying to make something better, but I just didn't have the foresight or the capacity to imagine, to how to turn props into something greater. But yeah, my little Ed Wood rant, aside, yes, Vitaly Versace. That's an interesting discovery that's been made.
It's I love it when we discover brand up and coming talents in movies, and of course that's a wonderful one. Now, that having been said, we have a few other movies we need to talk about tonight. Now, Bill, you saw Brigsby Bear, right?
Yeah, yes, I did. I don't know if Hawk saw this. I don't think he did.
I believe he did not. And since he's not here yet, that's why I thought we'd go ahead and talk about that.
Okay, good. There were two movies he saw that I also saw, but we'll get to those later. Brigsby Bear. This is a Lonely Island production. If you don't know who Lonely Island is, it's Andy Samberg and his two friends. They made MacGruber. They made, I think they made Hot Rod. Either that or they were associated with that. I'm not exactly sure. But they've done many, parody albums, music albums, parody movies like Pop Star.
Probably most famous for the Dick in a Box video.
Dick in a Box videos with Justin Timberlake, yeah. This is not a movie that's full-blown Lonely Island, though. This is like I want to say they just produced it. You know, they helped get it out there.
I see the movie stars Kyle Mooney, Claire Danes, Mark Hamill, Greg Kinnear, and Andy Samberg.
Yeah, Andy Samberg makes a small little cameo in it as a mental patient, which made sense. Okay, Brigsby Bear. The plot of Brigsby Bear is Kyle Mooney plays I'm guessing he's like in his late 20s at this point, maybe early 30s, but probably late 20s. Guy who's living with his parents underground.
Okay.
And it's not explained exactly why they're living underground. It's not initially. It's not explained if they think the world has collapsed. It's not explained what. All we know is that he loves this little TV show that he has a VHS collection of called Brigsby Bear, which is kind of in the vein of Zoobilee Zoo.
Oh gosh.
Or some Adventure Time type show where it's like a guy in a Brigsby Bear big mascot type outfit goes on adventures to take on this sun demon god thing. Like, you're gonna take that. You know, it's very childlike, but it also has this weird subversive subtext to it because it's clear that someone made it just for him. It has a very Truman Show aspect to it because over the course of some of these little episodes, like whenever we see them, we'll see that Brigsby Bear is turns to the camera and he'll talk to the audience, which is really Kyle Mooney's character, and he'll say like, and remember to clean out your rust bucket and da 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 da. You know, he'll give out some set of rules like to go by that clearly his family has come up with, you know, and this is the way they're teaching him. Don't go outside without, you know, permission, you know, that kind of thing.
Is he living alone or with his parents? Or?
No, he's living with his parents, who are Jane Addams and Mark Hamill. Okay. And they're trying to like teach him science and things like that, but they're also very creative and they're encouraging his creativity and things like that. It's revealed after the first 15 minutes that he was abducted by Mark Hamill and Jane Addams as a baby. And it's very clear. It's crystal clear, actually, during those 15 minutes that something's up with all this, because there's this very hilarious bit where Mark Hamill who he thinks is the father, is giving him this speech about how people in the outside world don't have imagination, but we do. Oh, you know, we're very creative. We're very, you know, this and that, and they're inside this bubble that sits on top of the underground house in the desert, and they're looking out into the nighttime wildlife. And Kyle Mooney's character, and I keep forgetting his name, but I'm sure you can pull it up right now. I think it's like John or James. Or
it says his character is James Pope.
James, yes, he's James. James looks out into the wilderness and he sees a couple of animals scurrying around, but then the shot changes to behind the animals, and it turns out they're animatronic robots. So the parents, quote unquote, have gone so far as to construct actual fake animals, so that in the wilderness, so that their son can assume there's life outside for some reason. I don't know. It's like this weird, tightly constructed Truman Show without a clear end game. It's like they didn't think what they wanted out of it. They just accept him. I guess they wanted a son, but anyways, so the police come, they find him, and they, you know, give him to his actual parents, which he calls his original parents, or his first parents or something. Like he refers to them in a very funny way, like they're my original parents and these are my first parents.
Okay.
Stuff like that. He's like, I don't think they should be in trouble. What they did wasn't that big of a deal, you know. You know, because he's still kind of attached to Mark Hamill and them.
Right.
But as the movie progresses, he learns that Brigsby Bear was, in fact, a creation of his father, who used to be a toy maker. And knowing that there are no new Brigsby Bear episodes coming ever again because this was just for him, which he thinks is cool, by the way. He thinks like, wow, so he knows all about the Brigsby Bear universe? That is so cool.
Yeah.
You know? he decides to go on a mission of making his own Brigsby Bear movie to finish off the series.
Okay.
Yeah, so the rest of the movie is like a DIY film shoot where he gets the props from Greg Kinnear, who plays a police chief or police investigator who was in charge of his case. He takes him out of storage and gives it to him because he kind of feels sorry for the kid and everything.
Mm-hmm.
And throughout all this, there's this, he's like awkwardly going through not just maturity, but he's also kind of working out his problems with having been abducted.
Yeah.
And getting used to this new world. It's not completely forefront. He's more focused on making Brigsby Bear, but every once in a while it's mentioned, like about him trying to work through his problems and everything. But he will never, his character never actually talks about it. His character, this is one of the best performances of the year, I think, and it rests solely on Mooney's personality. He seems like he's a genuinely weird guy.
Mm-hmm.
And from what I understand, maybe he's a nice guy too, but he also seems like he has a genuine weirdness to him.
How old is he at this point?
In the movie?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think he's like in his late 20s.
Okay, so he's in his late 20s and still like Brigsby Bear is.
Yeah, he's a stunted adult.
Okay.
But that makes sense because he was trapped underground and his abductors treated him a certain way. They never abused him or anything, but it kind of was abuse, but they never like physically abused him.
Mm-hmm.
It was more like some weird parenting type thing.
Do they ever give an explanation as to why?
Yes, it's not really a spoiler or anything, so I guess I can give it. At the end, at the climax of the film, he's trying to finish the Brigsby Bear movie, and he goes to visit Mark Hamill in prison. And he goes there, and he's like, "I have a question to ask you." And Mark Hamill assumes the question is, "Why did you take me as a baby?" So he starts saying, "Well, the woman came home with you, and I guess we were scared, and she was scared, but we just saw you, and we kind of thought, maybe you could be our son. Maybe you could, He's just trying to explain that the situation got out of hand, and one thing led to another, and which probably that kind of thing happens, usually when these things happen. It's not necessarily something sinister like black market selling of babies necessarily. In this case, it was just a lonely couple or something. Although they were the mother, the abductor woman was a scientist at a college or a mathematician or something. So it's like they weren't like desperate people necessarily. Like they weren't poor, but they were maybe like emotionally desperate.
Right.
And so Kyle Mooney, James, looks over at him and goes, "Oh, that's actually not what I wanted to ask."
Uh-huh.
And he pulls out a tape recorder. He's like, "We can't figure out how to get Brigsby's voice right. Can you record it?" And he hands Mark Hamill the script. And Mark Hamill's like, "Well, I am interested to see where he took the character." So he starts reading the characters that he did, for the show. And apparently he produced the show in some little warehouse with one other actress.
Mm-hmm.
Who James actually gets to meet the actress because he would frequently pleasure himself to her poster.
Oh God.
We only see that once, and he doesn't like actually. We don't see the mechanics of it. He just begins to put his hand down there, and then it cuts to something else. It's one of those kind of gags. But yeah, this movie rests completely on the shoulders of Kyle Mooney. It's more like he enters this world, and every character around him is just kind of befuddled by him
mm-hmm.
and his reactions to everything. Not so much, not just his obsession with Brigsby Bear, but just his general attitude. It's very aloof. It's very friendly,
mm-hmm.
but it's very detached.
Yeah.
Kindly detached. But slowly he begins to make friends, and slowly he begins to kind of come out of his shell a bit more, even though he's still kind of weird. And that's the movie, really. It's really just him trying to get through this one particular moment in his life, finding closure in it, and going from there. We don't see what happens to him after the movie is made, but we do see him show the movie to people in a movie theater setting, and that's where the movie ends. You know, it's just he's finished with the movie, so he's done. Maybe he'll have a regular life now. It's pretty good. It's pretty funny. But there's this like unusual creepiness to the film that is obviously because of the abduction stuff, but and also because of the Brigsby Bear in general, but it feels like it was excised from the script. Like maybe they fully fleshed it out more so when they were originally writing it, and then they were like, you know, it'd be funny is if we took out the explanations and just left it in the background, so that people kind of felt uncomfortable throughout. Like there's just something off about all this stuff, you know, but no one's talking about it, you know, one of those kind of things. And I love that about movies. I love how there can be movies where it's smiling on the outside, but very much disturbed on the inside. And that's Brigsby Bear.
That poster for that movie is so weird.
Yeah.
Isn't it? Yeah, it's a giant sun demon looking down at two silhouettes.
It's like a trip to the moon on acid.
There's a second poster where it's like a I want to say like a family portrait type picture where James, the main character, is looking off, you know, away from the camera, and then in like a little vignette style fade is Brigsby Bear in the corner of the poster. And I prefer that poster better, but
I think I saw that one.
But
yeah,
the theatrical poster is pretty funny. It's pretty weird.
All right, so Hawk Ripjaw, you've joined us. Woo!
Yes.
So we covered Brigsby Bear. Now you didn't see it, correct, Hawk?
I did not. I was not able to. I almost did last Sunday, and then I didn't.
Okay. So it's good that we covered that first then. We'll go ahead and move on to the next movie, which is Marjorie Prime.
Yes.
Yeah.
This one probably has taken the place of Silvio in my mind as my favorite of the year thus far. Although it's kind of hard to say because I just saw Good Time, which we'll talk about in a little bit, and that movie is a front runner for favorite of the year too. I'm kind of interested to hear what Hawk's introduction for this movie is because he just saw it last night, and so yeah, if you wouldn't mind.
Marjorie Prime, and Bill, you mentioned this in your review, and I kind of converged on that same conclusion without reading your review, which is interesting. We had this whole conversation about all of us that run this podcast being on a similar wavelength. But it's an interesting companion piece to the movie, to Spike Jonze's Her. In this universe in the near future, kind of lets you purchase a hologram of a loved one, which learns and develops at an accelerated rate, so you can implant all of your memories and talk to this hologram like it is the loved one. And my reactions throughout the film they changed a lot. The movie goes from being deeply melancholic to at times kind of sinister, and there's listlessness to the way that the movie paces itself and moves between scenes that I thought was really interesting and a little bit off-putting. And I thought it created this weird atmosphere that the characters had, like what is real. Like there's such a well, I don't want to use the word again, listlessness, but the way the film moves just feels surreal.
Yes, I think I said in my review that it starts out like a David Lynch short film. Like the opening scene could very well be a David Lynch short film where Marjorie is meeting with her John Hamm's character, who is the hologram of a younger version of her husband. And throughout, they're having, it's like there's no initial context. It's just these two people are in a room, and then we find out he's a hologram. But we know something's off before that point. We know because she's asking him questions and he's asking her questions, and she's saying like specific words that indicate he's not human. And you know,
and there's
there's this built-in history between the two that's really interesting because it seems like they've had more conversations in the past. And she goes on about memories, and the key part of this conversation is that there's this one bit where he's telling her a story of how they met, or how they how they got married, how he asked her to marry him, and she said, "Can it be this way instead?"
Yeah.
And he's like, "You want me to lie?" And she's like, "Well, I just prefer the other one."
It's worth noting this is based on a 2015 off-Broadway play as well.
Yes, which
but
I believe the actress who plays Marjorie was in.
I didn't know that. The way that it's shot and blocked does not feel like a play, though. It feels like a lived-in cinematic film, even though the dialogue is structured in a way that has that back-and-forth energy that you would expect to see in a stage production.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I would totally agree with that. There's also a lot of symbolism and motifs throughout, like of water and of not just memory, but water and time. And I guess they live next to the beach. This house is next to the beach, so there's also like sand and the wind. Wind noises. The white noise and things like that. There's a lot of interesting uses of all those elements that, like Hawk just said, make you uneasy. But I actually was kind of comforted by a lot of it. Not just the things the movie did, but the things the movie suggested. This is a movie of great implications and great suggestiveness. Like, it really kind of puts out there these notions that about existence and the future and afterlife, and how things of that nature, and what will live on past us.
And it's interesting that you got that reaction from there, because I found a lot of those themes to be extremely unsettling.
Yes. I thought, I don't know, maybe it's just my personality. I'm kind of, like, all right, you got to take the bad with the good. You got to, you can see the light in the dark, that kind of thing. But I don't know. I think the director, clear statement, in the movie, he's also not taking a particular side in terms of attitude. It's kind of like he might be a little more neutral about it, and yin and yang about it,
just laying it out there.
Yeah, exactly. And I loved how since it was a play, how he interpreted what was, because I could see the play in the movie. I could see it. Okay, it's a couple scenes in a house, but then you see other scenes that take place outside the house or around the house or in different rooms, things that couldn't actually happen on a stage, or at least not within a good amount of time. They had to set up the setting and everything like that. So he makes grand use of a small setting with great cinematic vision. Like there's a pool outside that they frequently use as a transition to the next revelation in the film. I don't want to get into spoilers, but there are some interesting revelations and discoveries that go on. There's just so much to unpack here. I only watched it once, and I really need to watch it again just to kind of get more from it.
I would love to watch it again and reapproach it with your mindset and see if maybe my nihilistic view of the movie might be challenged, hearing a different perspective.
Nihilistic. The movie kind of ends on a very, no spoilers here, but the movie does end on a note that could go either way depending on the viewer.
Totally, and I went with the latter.
Yes, I went with kind of both, understanding both, but I went with a more comforting side, probably because that's another thing about this movie is, while it's all about interpretation, the characters in the movie are giving memories and events to these holograms, these computer programs to remember, But the thing is, they're not reliable sources of information because their memories are based off of interpretation or based off of how they were feeling that particular day when an event happened or how they're feeling at this very moment.
Mhm.
You know, it's like the memories fade and alter as a person grows older. And uh, kind of expanding on that, the same can be said about the viewer of the movie, you know, in terms of like where they're at this point in the film, at this point in their own life, you know, their understanding of things, and it all can shift on a dime. You know, there's this great scene in the movie where Tim Robbins is talking to the John Hamm hologram. He's giving him like a backstory about past events so that the hologram can understand how best to serve Marjorie. And he gets pissed off at one point, Tim Robbins, and he throws whiskey in the hologram's face. Mm-hmm. And he starts talking all sinister to him, like, yeah, you know, he starts talking about other shit, but he's doing it in a very, like you said, Hawk, a very sinister approach. Like he's got something.
Like he's about to fuck with his hologram and mess some shit up.
Yeah, and he's about to fuck with the hologram or he's about to do something. And then he takes a pill, which is a recurring thing in the movie for him. And I still haven't figured that part out. Like, what was it? Because he hides it from his wife. And I'm like, what does that mean? You know, does it mean he's healthier than her? Like, I don't know. You know, I still need to get in on that.
Or
it almost felt like a what?
I said, or addicted to opioids.
He definitely appears to at least be an alcoholic.
He's very much an alcoholic. I think that's clear. Yeah,
right. He's like, I'm not drunk.
Every scene he's drinking.
Every scene he has at least a glass of whiskey. It's possible the pill was just a little slice of sci-fi flavor text, kind of like, you know, just something else that's happening in its world. But it almost feels like they went a little bit too far with it without doing enough to build on it. But then, of course, that would have built up so many new thematic underpinnings that had nothing to do, or that had no business being in this drama.
Yeah, it's really hard to say about that, but it was a very important scene because it's called back to at the very, very end of the film. It's not. I'm not going to give away any spoilers, but basically, the John Hamm hologram recalls back to that moment where Tim Robbins threw the whiskey in his face, and he reveals something. And
that's my new jam band, by the way, the John Hamm hologram.
John Hamm hologram.
It's probably already taken.
Yeah, unfortunately. Yeah. There is this band in New Orleans called the Tomb of Nicolas Cage, because Nicolas Cage has a tomb, a pyramid tomb that's already staked out for him in a New Orleans cemetery. In the event that he dies, he can get buried there.
What genre is the Tomb of Nicolas Cage?
I think it's metal or
that
punk.
Sounds accurate.
Or maybe it's both. I don't really know. I haven't listened to it fully, but I got the album off of Bandcamp, and
I always like the band's name. To be honest, I can't say that I even know of any songs of theirs, but I love the name, the Brian Jonestown Massacre.
Yes, that's a great band name. Or the John Dillinger Escape Plan. I do not enjoy that band's music, but man, they fucking nailed the name.
And this one's an obvious one, but and You'll Know Us by the Trail of Dead.
Okay,
that's a band name. And You'll Know Us by the Trail of Dead. Oh yeah, I know I took us out of the topic for a moment there, but anyway.
That's okay.
Very incredibly nuanced performances. Like, this is such a. When I was talking to Bill, maybe a third of the way through the film, I was saying, you know, that Her might be a more emotionally satisfying film, but then having watched Marjorie Prime to completion, both films are emotionally satisfying in their own ways.
Yes, absolutely. And in terms of performance, I think my favorite. John Hamm's great in it. He gives this blank expression that's very emotive. Kind of like Buster Keaton in a way.
There's kind of childish curiosity about him.
Mm-hmm, right.
Yes, he's got kind eyes, and but Gina Davis is stellar here. She has this wonderfully sharp passive aggressiveness to her, that comes through out of every molecule of her body. Like there's this resentfulness and all that, but she's not being overbearing about it. She's being overbearing about it, but in a very subtle way. Like which passive aggressiveness is. It's supposed to be a little more in the background because it's passive, but it's like laid on thick, you know. She clearly loves her family and everything, but she's also kind of got a lot of feelings that she needs to work through, and she has these great moments where it's coming through clearly, and I just was laughing. I was like, I get it. I get where you're going for. And I don't want to give anything away, of course. I keep saying that spoilers, but there's so many great moments of this movie, and Gina rocks them all.
There's a
That's
lot.
also a good band name. Gina rocks them all.
Gina That's okay.
If it was Gina rocks them all, then
yeah, okay. There's this there's that movie Southland Tales where they say no one rocks the cock like and then they say someone's name. Krista Now. That's the porn star's name, played by Sarah Michelle Gellar in the movie.
Southland Tales.
Yeah, I know, right?
It's fucking disaster.
It's a disaster, but it's like a fascinating one.
It really is.
Because there is something to be said about it, and I think it is trying to get at something. It's just it's a complete mess.
It has no idea what it's trying to get at.
It was the chance we had to prove or disprove the theory that the mind behind Donnie Darko really had no fucking clue what he was doing, and he just kind of accidentally made a good movie.
I don't even like Donnie Darko.
Well, there you go.
I enjoy it. I enjoy the original cut. I haven't seen the new cut, the director's cut, but I assume from what I've read that it's more like an extended edition, kind of like the Dune extended edition, where it's just got needlessness in it.
Like S. Darko, the entire movie?
I wanted to see S. Darko just to see what the fuck they were thinking.
I can't remember what movie just came out where I looked at the director and I was like, oh shit, he made S. Darko. This is going to be fucking garbage. And it was.
All around me are familiar faces, worn out.
That was a good scene, though. That you're referencing was a good moment in that movie. But the whole movie was good, I thought. It's just Richard Kelly has been kind of a disappointment ever since. Although I really liked The Box. That's just me, though. I enjoyed The Box. But it was more harmless and kind of middle ground than it was extraordinary or anything.
The Box was literally the last thing he's credited.
He's done. His company produced Darko Entertainment produced a couple other movies, and supposedly he was attached to direct a Nicolas Cage movie about a lawyer. That's about as far as I got in the plot synopsis.
Oh, I would love to see Nicolas Cage play a lawyer in a movie.
You see, my client here doesn't think that you're the defendant is being honest. Or something. I don't know.
Well, it's like if you've ever seen A Time to Kill, it is not a good movie by any stretch of the imagination. It's over the top.
A Time to Kill. Yeah, the fucking Sam Jackson. Yes, they deserve to die. I hope they burn in hell.
Exactly.
It isn't a good movie. No, like it's an entertaining movie.
Yes,
but it's not a good movie.
The movie's entertaining because it goes after the right target audience, the right target. Like the movie is very anti-racist white guy, and
which is a good thing.
And it's an excuse to watch Samuel L. Jackson mow down a couple of racist rednecks with a fucking assault rifle, and
racist redneck rapists.
Right. And then get cleared in court because the court refuses to convict him despite the fact that they know he's guilty. That's
right. And it wasn't even like guilty or not guilty by reason of insanity or something. It was just, oh, he's not guilty.
Yeah.
By reason of moral justice.
Well, it's
like that shouldn't play. You know,
the term is called jury nullification, where the jury knows that the person is guilty, but they don't believe what he did was morally wrong, so they choose to find him not guilty. And it's kind of a repugnant thing, though, because ultimately he
did do that thing that he did.
Not only that, but he also he shot Chris Cooper in the leg, and I guess his character loses the leg and shit like that. So.
Right.
He was not a bad guy.
And it was possible that the two guys would have gone to jail, and I mean, they might not have gotten a fair trial. That's a possibility. But why not wait till after the trial to kill them? You don't have to do it right then. Let the law work for a little bit.
Even discounting all of that, though, the movie is worth watching just because it's a chance to see Matthew McConaughey play a lawyer, and he does that damn well.
My favorite scene in the movie was when the guy who was racist, but he had kind of a conscience about the stuff. He gives a phone call to Matthew McConaughey's wife, and he's basically like, "Get out of the house." And they're like, "Who's this?" And he's like, "Mickey Mouse." And he's got a Mickey Mouse tattoo. That's why he says Mickey Mouse.
Yeah.
I think I lost track of the movie we were talking about.
Time to Kill. Oh God, there was a great scene in that movie where Kevin Spacey's talking to a press conference, and he's like, he's talking Southern. He's, his version of Southern. He's like, we're gonna do this case diligently. We're gonna do it by the books. We're gonna do it da 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 da. And his assistant, comes from behind the press conference people. No one's looking at him except Kevin Spacey. And the guy holds up a manila folder of the jurors' names, and I think the folder actually says jury on it, or jury names.
Yeah.
And Spacey just smiles like, hey, 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 hey. And I was like, he might as well have been like a bank robber holding a sack of money with a dollar bill sign on it or something. It was just so painfully ridiculous, but it made me laugh. So that's a good thing.
I have A Time to Kill on DVD, and it's one of those shitty early DVDs that was clearly a rip of the Laserdisc because the movie plays for 1 hour and then you have to flip the disc over.
Yeah, and is it also one of the ones that it's in that kind of black plastic case with a cardboard front, and you just unhook the tab to open up the front of the cover?
Oh yeah, it was a Warner Brothers production, and Warner Brothers movies until relatively recently, all DVDs from Warner Brothers had that awful cardboard packaging.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think I had LA Confidential in that way, and Austin Powers, and The Negotiator, a couple other early DVDs I got.
Back in action in that case.
A Time to Kill is one of the more entertaining Joel Schumacher films. So
I keep forgetting Joel Schumacher made that piece of shit.
Joel Schumacher is a chameleon of a director.
Oh, and by the way, screenplay by Akiva Goldsman.
Of course, yeah.
I'm happy and also kind of worried that people are starting to figure out that Akiva Goldsman is responsible for a massive majority of terrible movies.
You're worried because you think people will stop letting him make movies, or
yes?
Oh, okay.
Because that's why it's kind of like a double-edged sword, because we won't get any more Transformers The Last Night, but we also won't get any more
Winter's Tale.
We won't get any more Winter's Tale. We won't get any more King Arthur: Legend of the Sword. So
he has his directorial feature coming out later this year called Stephanie.
I know, and I'm going to watch it.
Let me just read the synopsis here from Wikipedia. It says, Stephanie is a young girl who was abandoned by her parents in their home. With only a toy turtle to talk to and surviving off peanut butter, there is also a dark supernatural force watching over Stephanie. When her mother and father return, the entity gets angry and spins out of control with Stephanie in the middle.
That sounds amazing.
So this is going to be like a PG-13 horror movie.
Oh, man.
Speaking of which,
Blumhouse
Polaroid that I was supposed to review this weekend apparently just fell off of the release schedule.
Yeah, well, it happens.
That's that movie about the cursed Polaroid camera that when you take somebody's picture with it, Final Destination comes and gets them.
Final Destination.
Yeah, because people literally die in freak accidents, and also there's a part in the trailer where someone's like, "Fuck this! I'm putting into this right now," and they set the picture on fire. And the girl whose hand is at the flame in the picture, her hand catches on fire in real life. So it's kind of like a whole hodgepodge of horror flicks that looked like a total fucking drug. I was so excited.
I will say,
Can't they just break the Polaroid camera?
She tried throwing it against the wall, but there was an explosion of supernatural energy, and it didn't work.
Oh, it's one of those kind of things. Yeah.
There's a part where she's the trailer gets funnier the longer it goes on. There's a part where she's running away from a demon or something. And then she bangs her head on a low-hanging lamp and falls over. And then, these rubbery, fake-looking demon hands come down and grab her face. And it's just... It's everything I wanted in a bad movie.
That reminds me of a scene in what's the fuck movie we just watched? The Hitman's Bodyguard. There was a scene in that movie where Salma Hayek is in a Dutch prison, I think, and which means it's like low security or it's very kind or something. I don't know. And she has her cellmate who's this fat woman. That's probably her name is Fat Woman. Is in the corner of the cell. I say that's her name because that's A, all that's given about her, and B, the movie seems to treat her with that insult. You know, because there's this bit in the first scene where we see her, this woman in the corner. You know, somehow he's like, "Stay in the corner, don't look." And then before the scene cuts away, there's a fucking fart noise.
Yeah, so basically she's forcing this lady to stand in the corner for no reason, and then the lady starts sobbing, and then this little parent.
She just farts out of fear and scarediness.
We could actually probably segue right into Hitman's Bodyguard.
I think we should, yeah. That scene pissed me off, but it also kind of made me laugh a little bit. I admit I laughed a little bit when that happened. I mean, it was laughter out of sheer shock that they would do that.
It's such it's such an easy joke.
So the Hitman's Bodyguard.
Yes. They already have Ryan Reynolds in the movie, who's pretty funny at doing his shtick, which is like kind of a version of Jason Bateman's sarcasm, but with a wittier and not as much cockiness. More like I'm kind of aware that I'm very sarcastic and funny, but you know, I can be a dummy sometimes.
It's like if Deadpool took himself seriously.
Yeah, it's kind of like that. Yeah, that's a good example. Yeah, that's a good. And Sam Jackson is doing his brilliant Shakespearean delivery of F-bombs, you know, which he does in just about every movie. This movie is tops when it comes to that, because almost every line out of his mouth is, "When you gonna get a motherfucker some levity here? Shit, you know, goddamn, Ryan."
There's even Ryan Reynolds even has a line alluding to the fact that nobody uses the word motherfucker like Samuel L. Jackson does.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, he has a line like that in the movie. Like, no one uses the word like you use it, or something.
A little background on the Hitman's Bodyguard, because I didn't know this when I first watched it. It's Ryan Reynolds is a scorned former. He calls himself this a lot. AAA security agent.
Which there is no rating in the movie. They even say that there is no AAA rating.
I didn't know such a thing as that. And his mark gets killed in the first scene, which was actually pretty funny.
Yes.
And there's also a Russian president played by who else? Gary Oldman. And there are a series of people. What?
I think it's not Bulgaria, is it? Or it's out there. It's one of those.
No,
countries
he's Russian.
Oh, he is Russian. Okay.
Yeah,
I thought it was
pretty sure.
like Belarus or something.
It says Belarus.
Might have been Belarus. Okay. In any case, Gary Oldman puts on his Russian accent and acts like a bad guy for a little while, and there's a series of people testifying against him and his crimes against the country, and Samuel Jackson's character is one of these. Samuel Jackson is also a hitman who has, at 28 separate instances, attempted to kill Ryan Reynolds or his protection detail. So they have a history and they hate each other. And now Ryan Reynolds has to protect Samuel Jackson and get him to Amsterdam. He'll be testifying against Gary Oldman. So it's a pretty
in a race against the clock, because there's a time limit.
Yeah,
you know, they have to get there by 5 p.m.
5 o'clock on this day. Yeah. It is a very basic, pretty cliche plot, which means that a whole bunch of the weight falls on the shoulders of Sam Jackson and Ryan Reynolds to carry the movie. And by God, they totally do. At least I thought so.
They really do. You know, this movie does work based on their relationship and chemistry, and they have a lot of fun doing it. The action was pretty ho-hum here and there, although it does get really good towards the end when there's like a boat chase.
I thought the action was good, yeah.
Yeah, the boat chase, and then there's a hardware store sequence that was particularly fun and actually shot with a lot of tension too. It was executed rather well. And
that was probably my favorite sequence.
Yeah, because he keeps using these tools on the guy over and over again. They're just not working. The guy just keeps coming back at him.
The part that I laughed the hardest at is that Ryan Reynolds fires one nail at him from the nail gun, and then for some reason just throws the nail gun at him.
Yeah, like that's gonna. You know,
and the guy just catches it.
Nail out of his head.
Yeah.
Yeah, like that's gonna help. You know, he's just desperate and out of ideas. Like, what do I do? I'm grabbing anything. And Sam Jackson, of course, is the super expert hitman who doesn't need Ryan Reynolds' help. He's like, I'm gonna get to Amsterdam myself, motherfucker. Because he's testifying to get his wife out of jail. That's the deal he's made.
Oh yeah.
So he's going there no matter what. Even though you would think he'd rather just break free, but he's like, no, I'm going there to get my wife out of jail. I don't care.
One of my favorite lines from Samuel L. Jackson is when Ryan Reynolds says that he has to get him out of harm's way, and Sam Jackson's like, I am harm's way. And then with a bullet in his leg, he does a full-on, he sprints across a room and somersaults over a railing to shoot a guy in the face from across the room.
Yes.
So it's like if his style of killing is like if John Wick was a comedy.
Yeah, that's kind of a good, that's pretty accurate. And the movie's poster is making fun of The Bodyguard.
Which is hilarious.
Which is a pretty good poster. It really is. It's almost like a spoof poster. Like back in the days of the guy from not Police Academy. Fuck, Naked Gun. Leslie Nielsen.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I got it right. Okay, it's like back when he did Wrongfully Accused, the bad spoof movies that he did.
Oh god.
But he did posters for them that were like mocking popular movies, and
Wrongfully Accused was actually the highlight of his bad spoof run, because then I
saw that with my brother, and we laughed the entire time because it was that fucking funny to us. And it's not so much anymore, but
yeah. Here, compare that to say 2001: A Space Travesty.
Yeah, I know. It gets worse over time. There was one good bit in Scary Movie 3 where he was the president, and he's like anyone here could be an alien, so watch out. And this guy with like he's got one of those voice things that you put up against your throat because he may have had like cancer or something. He's like, "Hi, Mr. President. It's nice to meet you." He's like, "You'll never take me alive." And
then that old lady starts screaming. He's like, she's scrambling my brains, and then punches her in the face.
I think it just has to do with Leslie Nielsen as a performer.
Scary Movie 3 has some quality gags.
Yeah, there's some good stuff in there, but back to the Hitman's Body.
It's not good, but one of the best ones is when Charlie Sheen is talking to the sheriff about strange things happening in the town, and in every shot, her hat changes size. Till at the end when she's leaving, she's trying to fold herself in her like 10-gallon hat into the car, and nobody's really mentioning it.
Or when they're doing that ripoff of that scene from Signs where the guy goes to see his dying wife, and she's like the cop is trying to explain what happened to Charlie Sheen, and she takes out a hot dog and breaks it in half, and he's like, she broke her wiener.
If you really want to see the pinnacle though of Leslie Nielsen's sad bad movie choices, actually, it would be the 1990 movie Repossessed.
Yeah.
That was done mostly against like a curtain, right? Like they had to film him in different times.
Repossessed is basically an Exorcist parody. Linda Blair is in it, and Leslie Nielsen is in it, and it's
just sad. It's not a good movie.
Yeah.
In fact, I can't even think of a good gag in that movie. There was a better exorcism gag in Scary Movie 2 with James Woods.
I maintain the best exorcism gag comes from "I'm gonna get you, sucker."
Or that one. No one talks about that movie as often as it should be talked about in terms of.
We talk about it a lot.
Yeah, it comes.
Doesn't get talked about outside of us.
But anyway, The Hitman's Bodyguard is again,
it's entertaining where it needs to be. It's it's one of those like good afternoon matinee movies.
But that chemistry between Samuel L. Jackson and Ryan Reynolds is fucking fantastic.
It really is.
This is one of those movies where you can really tell everybody's having a ton of fun. Samuel L. Jackson has not been this hilarious and clearly having as much fun since Kingsman. What? No, probably Kingsman. And there's so many great lines, and there are a lot of just like really random vulgar ones. Like they're walking through a field, and Samuel L. Jackson just for no reason is like, "This field smells like your cock," and the line's totally out of context, and there's no reason he would know what Ryan Reynolds' cock smells like. But of course, hey, it's a dick joke in an R-rated movie.
Yeah.
There's a running joke about Ryan Reynolds' car is there's a guy, an obese man was transporting packets of heroin in the back seat, and I guess he had diarrhea or something burst or whatever. So anybody who gets in the car is like, this car smells like ass. And it ends up being kind of a tired joke, but it's still kind of like, it's
what they got to work with, you know.
Yeah, it's what they got.
And they're doing their best. They really are to make it work, you know. Like Reynolds looks pissed off that Jackson keeps mentioning it, and Reynolds keeps going along with it anyways. There's like the payoff to it is when they get a chance to pick a new car, and instead of picking like the Cadillac or the Jaguar, Reynolds just picks the car that blends in with traffic.
But then he proceeds to race out of the parking garage, plow through a gate, hit another car, and execute and make the both airbags go off.
Yeah, and Jackson has to shoot the airbags to get them to deflate. And Reynolds is like, I could have used a pen or something. I could have poked a hole in it. There's a cameo in this movie too at the very beginning when Reynolds is kind of on the. He just finished peeing in a water bottle because he is apparently living out of his car, and he goes to get his new client, and it's that actor from With Nail and I, the lead actor who was like With Nail and I. It was that movie about two drug addicts.
Oh, I didn't see that. I didn't recognize the actor.
Okay, was it With Nail or was it I?
I think it was With Nail, but it's I can't think of the actor's name, but he's very prominent. Actually, he's the guy that's all coked up when Ryan Reynolds picks him up from his office, and Reynolds is just like, "Oh, great! So I see you're doing drugs. All right, that's good. Well, I'm here to pick you up for your meeting."
Pretty funny Easter egg. I don't know how much of the credits did you watch, Bill?
I actually left after after they were dancing in the fucking club.
Okay. Well, there's one blooper where during the take where Ryan Reynolds is monologuing while all hell's breaking loose right behind him. Do you remember that in Amsterdam?
Oh yeah.
Falling out, and
he's like eating, or no, he's taking a couple of shots because apparently alcohol is you can get it from a vendor just outside, kind of like New Orleans.
Yeah, just down the street.
It's just down the street, right?
During that scene, as they are pairing the shots, the church bell started ringing, and they kept going and going and going until finally Patrick Hughes was like, "All right, well, never mind. We're gonna cut and try again when the church bells are done." So earlier in the movie, Samuel Jackson is singing a song in the car called "Nobody Gets Out Alive," and it's really obnoxious. Like every time he's about done and Ryan Reynolds is about to say something, he just gets back into it like, "Nobody gets out alive." That song, as I found out in the credits, written and performed by Samuel Jackson.
Oh, okay. That's
so he cool. Apparently he wrote this song for that movie just so he could be a jackass in the car singing it. So
that's what's so great about. Oh, go ahead.
A couple problems I had. There was some really dodgy shit with the background. Like in a lot of the scenes, especially in the first half, the background seemed really blurry and washed out, and I don't know why.
Yeah, maybe because it's at night. Some of those.
No, during the daytime scenes, especially the protests in
you mean those bits? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Also, the CGI was really bad.
Yes.
Like unfinished bad almost. Like there's a car. There's some awesome practical stunts. Like there's two cars get pushed onto a freeway and then one gets hit. And you can tell that it's real because in the next shot, the car that gets hit explodes and it just looks unfinished.
Yeah.
So I thought that was really strange. And my other
and there were, of course, some obvious green screens here and there.
There was some very obvious green screen. My only other problem with the movie is no Whitney Houston songs.
Oh yeah, well
they had it in the trailer. Early. They could have done it. There was a scene that was perfect for it. What?
I thought it'd be too soon. I didn't know they had it in the trailer. Wow, I didn't even see the trailer.
The original teaser trailer had the Whitney Houston song from Bodyguard.
If I had to guess, putting it in the movie probably would have been an extra licensing fee, and it sounds like they had cut corners on other elements of the budget already. So maybe the song was in the movie at some point, and someone said, "You know what? We have it in the trailer. Everyone already knows we're making that reference. And by the way, The Bodyguard came out in 1992. No one remembers that movie. So
Yeah, that's true.
No, I
And-
think
and
it's.
to
I think
be
it's. Pretty,
fair,
I think it's true. Yeah, but I think it's pretty iconic. For some people to recall.
the scene that I wish it was in.
I would argue The
Yeah.
Bodyguard is more iconic for those who haven't seen it. Those who've seen it will say that's a terrible movie.
It's basic as fuck. Yeah,
it's pretty.
It's not
yeah,
good.
it's pretty simplistic. But I think maybe what's more iconic is the song. Now that I think about it.
Yeah, and
So
I
maybe.
think
Okay.
and I would have thought that if they'd had the poster, they could have gone all the way. But I see it both ways. But that's fine.
And Hawk,
what we get in exchange is what?
Please tell me you didn't just use basic like it was a thing.
Well, if it is a thing, the Hitman or the Bodyguard movie is a great thing to apply that label to, right?
Well, what I'm saying is the first time I ever heard someone use the word basic in that context, like saying, "Oh, that's so basic," was
like
I don't mean basic in the
bitchy
millennial
shit.
sense. I mean basic like it's a basic fucking movie where nothing happens.
oh, okay. Well, it sounded like you were throwing out basic.
That sounds so basic.
Like,
Right.
I don't even know what the
Debbie.
fuck that means. Okay.
Okay, all right, fair enough.
Don't be so basic.
It is a $30
Oh,
million
Yoga
movie,
Hosers.
so,
exactly.
Yoga Hosers. That's where it came
That's
from.
what I'm
Yoga
saying.
Hosers.
That's what, because one of the comments I had about Yoga Hosers was that I had an open letter to Kevin Smith, which was basic is not a thing. It's not going to be a thing. Please, God, don't let it become a thing. And so when I heard you say that, I cringed a little because I'm deathly afraid that it's becoming a thing.
No. But no, the movie is it's a $30 million film, kind of lowish budget for a big Hollywood release. So I understand the CGI jank, and I'm happy that they were able to make an R-rated film just so that Samuel L. Jackson could drop all of his motherfuckers, and that you could have there's some pretty funny gore moments as well. And some incredibly good physical comedy.
Yeah.
Like there is some awesome slapstick in this movie.
The movie was missing one thing though, and that was a cameo by Jai Courtney as a like a Russian bad guy, like the lead bad guy. It just felt like that would have been a good movie for him, to just be in, just where he doesn't talk. He just says stuff in an accent maybe every once in a while, like he yells in an accent, and then he just fights.
Yeah, I could see him playing the main
adversary,
bad guy, but the main guy hunting them. He probably wasn't available. He's probably, I don't know, doing whatever the fuck Jai Courtney does.
Oh yeah, he just did The Exception with Lily James, where he plays a Nazi who falls in love with a Jewish maid.
Yeah, I saw that just came to Amazon Prime, and the reviews were not bad, so I was going to give that a look.
I saw there was a Twitter conversation by some critics, and they were the way they painted it was not so good.
Oh, okay, fair enough.
They're like, oh,
I could have told you that. It sounds not so good.
Yeah, are they saying that Lily James is the only Jew that Nazis find acceptable to bone, or something? And I was like, oh, that sounds bad.
That's an interesting interpretation.
Yes,
all right.
it is.
Well, all right. We're gonna go ahead and move on then to Good Time.
Good Time, and a good time was had.
Oh,
I saw the movie yesterday morning at a small little press screening. I think I did see the trailer just before, just to kind of I wasn't fully aware of the film, except that there was some controversy regarding Robert Pattinson and a request that was made by the filmmakers for him to do something on set involving a dog. I don't know if that was with this movie or if it was with another movie, but the picture that the article used was a clip from the movie. So I associated it with Good Time. Maybe it was within a different film, but Robert Pattinson apparently refused to do some scene with a dog because it was like sexual in nature or something, or he felt it was sexual in nature. Seriously, this is a real article, by the way. But I don't think it was in reference to Good Time. I related it to Good Time.
okay.
Anyways, the plot of the movie is Robert Pattinson and his brother, played by co-director Ben Safdie, who is I don't know if he has autism or if he has some other disorder, but he is, disabled. And the brother, not Robert Pattinson. Pattinson plays like his caring brother, or the guy who's looking after him because they're family and everything. The movie starts with it gets going with a bank robbery. They put on these really horrifying looking, realistic type masks that definitely do disguise who they are. And they go into a bank. They give the teller a letter, and they say, "Hey, we're armed. Give us the money," that kind of thing. And they think everything. It's very tense, but they think everything's gone according to plan. They get in their Uber because they called an Uber, or they scheduled one. That was their escape. And before that, they go in an alley and take off their stuff, and But
they
a die pack
themselves from a bank robbery.
Yes, a die pack was hidden in the money, so it goes off, and that leads to a big chase. Not a car chase, just a foot chase, where his disabled brother gets caught by the police. And after a couple days, the brother's now in Rikers, and Robert Pattinson is on the lam, but he's trying to figure out a way to get his brother out of jail. Mm-hmm. So he goes to a bail bondsman. He gives the guy whatever cash he has left from the robbery. And the bail bondsman's like, "You're $10,000 short. Give me $10,000 and I'll get your brother out." And apparently the bail bondsman's rather trusting of a guy who is a fugitive of the law.
Yeah.
Because throughout the film, we see that there are TV clips with Robert Pattinson's fucking face.
Well,
shot, and I guess the bail bondsman is supposed to be kind of sleazy in this movie.
The job of a bail bondsman is to take money to basically get someone out of prison.
Yeah.
And
they don't care
and they absorb some of the so there have been bail bondsmen who are less reputable, let's say.
Okay, well that makes sense then. That's kind of what I went with. It was that this guy was probably less than reputable anyways. So this leads to Robert Pattinson going on a kind of a 12-hour adventure of desperation and running against the clock, if you will. Even though there's really no clock per se, there's no time limit. It's just he's racing against all odds to scrounge up the money. And at one point, he even tries to break his brother out of a hospital because his brother was beaten up in prison and was put into police custody in a hospital. But he ends up this is part of the movie, is that it's one bad thing after another. Robert Pattinson makes a mistake and breaks the wrong person out. Just so happened to be another guy who got beaten up. Yes. And while Robert Pattinson's character is actually very, very good at strategy and very good at figuring plans out ahead of time, he can't he doesn't have good luck in this movie, basically. One thing after another, one obstacle after another. His plan basically goes down from, I'm going to find a way to get the $10,000, to I'm going to break my brother out of the hospital, to, oh God, I fucked that up. I'll have to find the money some other way, to I'm going to sell some drugs, to I've run out of plans. It's like, it's just one thing after another for this guy. And it's very, the movie's kind of a comedy in that way. Because, I mean, that's not to say it's not tense, not to say you don't kind of empathize with the character, not to say that you don't, feel what he's going through and all that stuff. But there is a comedy of errors going on here, because he's not dumb or anything, but it's just bad shit keeps happening to him, and he did do a bad thing. So it's like we're just waiting on that comeuppance to finally happen. The movie has a lot of things going on in it, as far as I think what it's trying to not just the setting, but also the mood. It's you could almost say it's like perfect for economic anxiety. I've heard that term used so often with regards to racists. We're not racist, we're just worried about the Financial Times or something. And it's like, well, in this movie, it actually makes sense. The characters aren't racist, but they are, in fact, out of money and desperate. And they're not wanting to go back to prison, and they're not wanting to get in trouble. They're almost victims of their own circumstances, which, they shouldn't be doing in the first place. But,
I'm a bit confused. Where does race come into this?
Race doesn't come into this. I was saying that there's a phrase that's been used in a lot of political articles I've read called economic anxiety.
Mm-hmm.
It's to describe a group of white people that feel like they've been disenfranchised, and so they vote for Trump. But a lot of pundits believe that phrase is more of a crutch than it is an accurate description. They feel it's more like these people are really just racist. They're not voting because they're not making money, and they feel Trump will get them money.
I see.
That kind of thing. In the case of this movie, however, I do feel there is an economic anxiety going on with the characters, not just because of the race against time or race to get money scenario, but it's also like the dreams that we have, the better life that we have and that we're wanting to get to is kind of at play here, and how out of reach that is, despite our quote unquote best efforts. It all boils down to that's another thing too in this movie. There's a lot of it's not product placement, maybe it's free product placement, I don't know, but it uses fast food chain billboards, like the big signs that stand on those poles, like McDonald's, White Castle, that kind of stuff. It even uses branded soda bottles like Sprite as a main plot point. There's a bottle of Sprite that was infused with acid, not boiling acid. I mean like the drug acid, LSD.
I feel like you would have a hard time staying in the bottle if it was like Sprite infused with
boiling
real
acid.
acid.
Yeah, it wasn't.
I feel like it'd be hard to sell that too.
Yes, it would be. But the plot boils down, like I said before, from all these different intricate or slightly intricate plans to, I gotta sell this bottle of Sprite acid to get the money to get my brother out of jail. and even the movie poster has Robert Pattinson climbing out of a Sprite bottle. So that does play a part in this. And I think that blends into the setting, but also into the mood and into how the characters are kind of coping with this they're living. Every character seems to want something better for themselves, which, clearly, like they say something like, oh, my current life sucks, or not quite in those plain words, but they do have something they want to get to. And Robert Pattinson kind of uses people. He's a little selfish, but it's really more like manipulation to get to his ultimate goal, which is to get his brother out of jail. And there's another question too, in that, should his brother be working so hard to get his brother out of jail? Maybe his brother away from him. Maybe his brother is codependent on his disabled brother. Maybe Robert Pattinson has a toxic relationship that he needs to cut, for the sake of his disabled brother. There's a lot of that at play too. And, like family relationships and whatnot. And, I was really surprised by that. This movie has a lot going on other than it's a crime caper foot race, and like I said before, well, I say caper to not like the food.
Yeah, it's not like the Green Muppet caper.
No, when I hear the term caper, I hear like sneakers.
Well, that's the thing. It is kind of a comedy in a way.
Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
It's more of a comedy of circumstance than it is a comedy of jokes.
Okay.
It's more like what is happening to him is kind of funny.
Okay.
They call that
I was
comedy.
Situational. Okay, well, I call it a caper sometimes. Or even though caper is associated with goofy, I can still kind of associate it with like in the funny aspect of the word caper and infuse it with something that's like dramatic. I was the only guy. Okay, well, whatever. There were two other critics at my screening, and I was the only one laughing at these scenes, openly laughing to them. I was like, yeah, and the other two critics were like, "Oh, I'm just writing down my notes." You know, I was like, "Well, you're not paying attention to the movie." You know,
I
I've
know
tried,
that feeling. When I was at
I've tried writing notes in movie theaters before, and it's so difficult to do. I wish I could figure it out, but maybe my eyesight isn't so good. I don't know, but
No, it's not your eyesight.
I have a hard time paying attention to the film while writing notes. Like, oh, am I missing something? You know, that kind of thing.
There's no
And
point in doing that.
also writing in general during the notes because you can't see the lines. You don't know what size letters you're doing. You know, it's just a pain in the ass. Maybe they'll invent something one day that makes it easy to do.
You mean like a pen with a light on it? They have those.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Well, what do you want to bring into a movie? Something that makes a bright light.
It's not bright, dude. It's the tip lights up so you can see like a 3 centimeter radius around your pen tip,
which can be seen by everyone sitting next to you, and you're automatically.
It can, yes.
That's
your
why you
eyesight
and everybody else
automatically.
Not.
Your eyesight is automatically attached to that light.
No, it's not.
Dark room, and
once, it's
not even a bright light. It's like like a. I don't know. It's hard to describe. It's
doesn't really matter.
It doesn't. Like it's more like a glow. It's a slight glow, no more than the hundreds of lights that line the stairs on either side.
I'm just going to go out on a limb and say that if you bring anything that makes an illumination in a movie theater while it's playing, then you are the problem.
Yes, Hawk.
Okay.
So all right. Well,
I went to the last time I took notes in a theater was in Kidnap, which was at 10:40 at night. And nobody else was in there.
Okay, then that's fine.
I'm not part of the problem.
If there was no one in the theater to inconvenience, that's different.
Yeah, I'm going to sit away from everybody else, probably at the very top of the theater.
Yes, if you're being courteous, that's definitely, that's the right move to make.
Not to mention, I wrote my notes using the light in the theater. At the Cinebar where I was at, underneath the tables, or underneath the tables lining the seats, there's a little bit of a light so you can see the paper towels. I just kind of like had the paper on my lap. Of course I did borrow their paper that you're supposed to write your menu selections on, but they don't even fucking use those.
I have this vision of Hawk walking into a movie theater carrying one of those big fuck off size mag lights and just beaming it onto his paper.
Just like a miner's like headlamp.
Yeah.
There was a Comedy Central show they used to broadcast from Great Britain where it would always open with a guy with an obnoxiously giant cell phone, and he'd just be screaming into it in a movie theater or a restaurant or a library. You know, these settings where it's supposed to be calm and quiet, and he'd be going, "What? No, I'm in a cinema. A cinema. What? No, I don't have it." You know, stuff like that.
Yeah,
it's just being completely overbearing. That's just hilarious to me. But
speaking of completely overbearing and hilarious to, well, I'm not sure who.
Some people, yes.
Hawk, you saw the Nut Job 2, Nutty by Nature.
Nut Job 2, nutting on nature, as you put it.
Yeah.
And I almost spit out the water I was just drinking.
For those that don't know, our good friend Ken is extraordinarily good at warping movie titles into porn titles.
Yes,
one borders on uncomfortable, however.
That's the trick is to make it border on uncomfortable.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but was or was not the original Nut Job a South Korean co-production, or at least co-financier?
I can't say that I know enough about the Nut Job to say that.
Anybody that knows that answer off the top of their head either worked for the movie or knows too much about the Nut Job, or both. So in the first Nut Job, I don't know what happened because I didn't watch it. This came about because of an interesting thing that happened. Okay, so our resident Felix, she was stating that she needed to review it and watch it. And we had gotten into some sort of conversation about having a busy week or a rough week, whatever. And she had stated that she needed to watch it. And me, being the competitive person that I am, said, "Nuh-uh, my week is also bad because I'm going to go see the Nut Job 2 as well." So that's kind of what that came from. But then I was like, I kind of had a thing where I was like, okay, really, was that necessary? Can I just not? And then she got back to me and said, this is totally your kind of bad movie. So I went and watched it, and it's totally my kind of bad movie. Because it's fucking insane. It's not as insane as The Boss Baby, but it's up there. One of the biggest things that makes it similar to The Boss Baby is the pacing. So I didn't see the first one, but in this one, the animals have taken over the nut store and they have nuts for days. They can just celebrate with nuts all the time. They have nuts. They can bust nuts. They can eat nuts. They can gargle nuts. They can do whatever they want. And then the nut shop explodes in a scene where he's like, I can't remember how they said it. They're like, the only way that we're going to be in trouble is if the nut shop explodes. And then the nut shop explodes right behind them. So then they move back into the park and have to start fending for themselves. But the mayor, who bears a curious physical resemblance to our president, wants to, it's one of those movies. He wants to tear down the park because it's not making any money. And he wants to build a theme park that will make money for the city. And then things go from there. The pacing of this movie, like I said, is out of control. There is literally an action scene every 10 or 15 minutes. And when I say action scene, I mean the bulldozers come in and the squirrels run in and start chewing the wires and they get electrocuted and the tractors race around and crash and blow up and trees get knocked over and there's dynamite and there's exterminators that have guns that fire tranquilizer darts and there's like all kinds of shit going on in this movie. Would you
expect anything else from a movie featuring the voice talents of Jeff Dunham and Gabriel Iglesias?
No.
You know what?
I fucking dumb.
Don't recognize those voices in the movie. Let me look it up. Because this wasn't really a movie that felt like it was driven by the personalities, besides maybe Will Arnett as the main character, but his voice kind of matched his character's personality. So I didn't really watch the movie and be like, hey, that's that actor that's famous.
Okay.
So I guess it has that going for it. Let's see. Peter Stormare plays a character named Gunther, and I don't even remember a character named Gunther. Jeff Dunham is the mole. Okay, yeah, the mole had a minor part that I don't really remember, and then Gabriel Iglesias. I don't know who the fuck Jimmy is, so I have no idea. So there's also Jackie Chan, who plays a little white mouse named Mr. Fang, who gets really angry when somebody calls him cute. And this kind of leads into some interesting parts about this movie where it gets kind of fucked up for an animated kids movie. And Ken, you pointed out that nobody actually dies and there's no really finality to it, but there still takes some really dark turns. Like there's a scene in the mayor's mansion where the Will Arnett's character's best friend, a little rat, he falls off a ledge and plummets 6 stories and hits the ground and slips into a coma. And so Surly, Will Arnett's character, is like crying and apologizing for not looking out for him. Yeah, it's like, oh, Jesus Christ, man. There's a part where Mr. Fang ostensibly kills somebody. Like it seems like they do because of the pratfalls and things that happen to the humans. And then him and his army of mice fill up one of the exterminator suits and use it to fight another exterminator hand to hand. Like it's such a bizarre and grim movie at times. It's very interesting. I wouldn't recommend seeing it, but I also wouldn't recommend turning it off if you came across it, because it's one of those interesting movies that's kind of like, what the fuck were they thinking? There was one gag that I thought was pretty funny where the female main character is talking about how that they have to be responsible for their park and take care of it. And she starts to sing like, "This park is our home." And then there's this kind of a beat and everybody looks at her like, what the fuck are you doing? And then, they're like, were you about to sing right there? She's like, yeah, it felt right. And everybody else is like, no, it wasn't right. And somebody else is like, yeah, you're really off key. You're a terrible singer. Like that was kind of a funny joke, but, that's kind of the long and short of the nut job too. There's a part, the dog character named Precious, meets the dog owned by the mayor's daughter, and he's like, "Oh, I got something for you," and then he throws up for her so she can eat it, and is like, "Come on!" And she's like, "That's gross. I'm not gonna do that." He's like, "Oh, don't want it to go to waste then," and then he eats his own puke. It's like, what? This movie is all kinds of. Who directed this? Cal Brunker.
And by the way, you're probably right about the whole Korean thing, because looking at the production list, about half of them are Kim's.
And the opening credits had 2 or 3 logos that were in some sort of, it looked like Korean alphabet.
Mm-hmm.
Who did this guy? What else did this guy direct? He's been an art director a lot. He directed. Oh fuck. Okay, first of all, he directed what?
Go on.
He directed Escape from Planet Earth.
Oh.
Then he directed The Nut Job 2.
Uh-huh.
And he's got a movie coming out in 2019 called The Nut Job 3.
Oh. Well.
Oh, what are they going to do with The Nut Job 3? I'm kind of curious now.
Maybe it's going to be the next the next, what do you call it, Ice Age, where they just keep making sequels, and every time another sequel comes out, there's less of a reason to care.
But that's the thing, is that there's not really any merchandising around the Nut Job movies.
Well, at least not the first one. Maybe the second one.
Nothing.
Maybe these movies are made cheaply enough that...
Oh, they have to be. I mean... But I feel like they had a lot more budget to work with on this one. So let me see what the original Nut Job budget was, because again, there is so much action in this movie. There's a point where in the theme park, the Ferris wheel blows up and is rolling around the entire park, crushing everything in its path for the entire duration of that action scene, or of the entire climax. Even there's a sword fight on top of a balloon. It's like all kinds of shit. So the first Nut Job had a budget of $42 million, which seems way higher than I thought. That's higher than The Hitman's Bodyguard. And the Nut Job 2 has a budget of 40. That doesn't make any sense. That cannot be accurate.
To address what the reason for this being as inexpensive as it is, I can only say, have you ever seen Clerks, the animated series?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Do you remember the episode? Do you remember the episode where the last 5 minutes just turns into Japanese animation?
Oh yeah. Big American party. Ah.
And then it gets to the scene where the Korean animators are being whipped by by like slave drivers.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is what.
Well, you know what's weird is it Nut Job 2? Okay, Nut Job 1, I only saw trailers and that fucking Gangnam Style end credit sequence, but it's weird that Nut Job 2 looks like shit. Nut Job 1 looks like shit. Nut Job 2 at least has a little more graphical fidelity to the animation.
Maybe they just use the graphics from the first movie and then clean them up a bit.
Maybe that's probably actually really accurate. But
it's like how last year that Ratchet and was it Ratchet and Clank? Yeah, Ratchet and
Clank. They used the engine from the video game.
Yeah,
to animate the movie, which is ironic because the video game actually looked pretty good. Now, I don't know if that was probably my mind saying, "Hey, this is a video game. It looks like a video game." Whereas if I'd seen the movie, it would be a different sort of process in my mind. But
the movie does not look that great. I mean,
okay. I'll have to send you a video of the gameplay later on and tell me if you think it looks similar.
Well, this is what I would say. I've actually seen the side by side of it.
Okay.
In video game context, that's pretty good graphics. But in the context of making a movie, you got to up your game a little bit.
Okay.
It's sort of like when you were back in the PlayStation era, when they used to have those cinematic sequences, and I remember being so wowed by them, and then looking back at those games now and looking at those cinematics,
sure.
A perfect example. You ever play Siphon Filter?
Of course.
The cinematics in that first game are horrible, but I remembered thinking they were great, and then I replayed the game like a year ago, and I was like, "Oh my god, this is."
I mean, yeah, because like nowadays, if you see a cutscene where a guy with a decal face and his fucked up glove hands, just gesturing while an actor says lines. It was very immersive back when those games came out, but now it's just like it's awful. It's phone graphics. So according to IMDb, the Nutjob 3, the plot will be Surly's daughter falls for the son of Raccoon. I don't remember who Raccoon is.
That sounds so out of context.
Since I don't know who any of those characters are, that just
Surly is the Will Arnett character who does not have a daughter in this movie. And Raccoon,
that also out of context makes no sense.
I'm not seeing any voice credit for Raccoons. That must be a new character. Jesus, what are they doing? But anyway, yeah, it's a weird.
They're just skipping ahead.
It's a weird kind of fucked up movie. There's a part where Surly goes to Mr. Fang for help, and Mr. Fang basically he's like, "I told you never to come back here," and just beats the shit out of him and like throws him across the room and drags him, and then he starts choking him out with his tail, and then every mouse in the room, like they're all holding matches, and they all like puff out their matches, and the whole thing goes dark. It's like, well, for all we know, the main character just fucking died because Jackie Chan killed him.
Just once, I would like to see. I'd like to see an animated movie where it's a completely PG-rated, family-ish, Pixar-like movie, but in one random scene for no apparent reason, someone puts like one of the main characters' heads in a vice and makes their eyes pop out. Just something fucked up. Like, what the hell happened here?
I mean, the Nutjob 2 almost goes there. I mean, I swear, I definitely thought that the rat was gonna die. Like, Felix sent me a screen. She took a picture while she was watching it of the rat is just sitting on this stone like altar. His arms just laying off to the side and just not breathing. And all the other little woodland creatures gathered around him crying because he's dead. And it's like, this is a movie for kids. Like, not even Disney. Disney kind of had that finality, but, you know, Simba, like, poked his dad. It's like, oh, Dad, wake up. And then Scar's like, yeah, he's dead. But this is like a 5-minute scene of characters crying and talking about how they weren't there to save him. So that's all I've got about that movie.
I guess since I'm... I've seen some shit. I mean, Watership Down is just like.
I mean, this is not Watership Down or the Plague Dogs territory at all.
Oh yeah. The first 5 to 10 minutes of the Plague Dogs is enough to make you lose your faith in humanity.
But those movies sell themselves as dark, mature films. Like, hey, this is a movie about rabbits that kill each other. This is a movie about dogs in the post-apocalypse. The Nutjob 2 is about talking animals trying to steal nuts, and also somebody might die.
There's really no post-apocalypse to the Plague Dogs, but
maybe pre-apocalypse.
No, not really.
You don't think so?
I
did get a sort of oppressive atmosphere from Plague Dogs that kind of hinted at something dark to come.
The plot of the movie is basically 2 dogs escape from this facility that's doing experiments on animals. And in the course of their escape, one of the dogs accidentally knocked over a vial of something that can potentially contained like bubonic plague. And as a result of that, the dogs become, you know, while the dogs are on the run, they're trying to survive and such. They're being pursued by man because they believe that these dogs are potentially dangerous, you know. And
that's what I'm talking about.
When I call it when you call it apocalyptic, I would say there's certainly an apocalyptic aspect to the feeling of the movie, but it's very much set in. It's apocalyptic for the animals. The humans are okay. It's modern technological humanity.
Well, you know that they found bubonic plague in some ticks in Arizona, right?
Yep.
I'm loving it.
All right, so the last conventional thing we'll be talking about before Hawk and I do our movie exchange is The Defenders.
The Defenders, starring Woody Harrelson's.
Oh yeah. Oh, I'd watch that show.
That was what do you guys think about that movie?
that movie. I never saw Defendor. It came out the same year
I have
Super
no
and
idea
Kick-Ass.
what we're talking about.
You what?
I have no idea what's mentioned.
Oh, so
Defendor.
Woody Harrelson was in a movie about 6.5 years ago called Defendor. He was a mentally what was it? I don't remember what his issue is. He was like paranoid or something was wrong with him, but he was a vigilante.
A vigilante.
It came out the same year as Super and Kick-Ass.
Yeah. So unfortunately, it was the least of those three.
Oh, wow.
It wasn't bad. It's just kind of, you watch this and then you read the IMDb trivia where it says the director spent his life savings to make it, and you're like, oh, that's too bad.
Yeah.
It's not terrible though. Like, he wears a mask. He's like, the thugs are like, what are you gonna do to us? He's like, I've got bees, and he pulls out a little baby formula jar full of bees, and he smashes it on the ground so they chase after the bad guys. It is very much Super in spirit.
Yeah, well, that's
noise.
That's Ken's microphone.
Well, it's not my microphone. It's my. I'm gonna have to figure out a way to fix this. The charger on my computer seems to be making some electric feedback.
That sounds really bad.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's talk about movies.
Yeah,
let's talk about Defenders. I've only seen the pilot episode.
Okay. And Ken's only seen the first 2 episodes, right?
Yeah. I have, and please
right.
tell me I'm continuing to watch because I really need it.
At the very least, watch episodes 3 and 4 because episode 3 has the hallway fight, and episode 4 has a really terrific sequence inside a Chinese restaurant. So anyway, the Defenders is like, yeah, all the fucking Marvel people, Marvel Netflix people. Yeah, Marvel Netflix coming together because they've all had their own adventures, and now they're gonna fight the Hand one more time, which is kind of one of the show's problems because I'm tired of the fucking Hand. Nobody cares.
After all this time and all this fighting, you'd think at some point someone would think, why don't we just talk to the Hand?
Yeah. Well, they try that. They actually kind of roll some interesting stuff into the movie into the show regarding the Hand. Like they want to kidnap Iron Fist to like make a better show or something. I don't know. But the biggest thing is that all the members of the Hand want to elongate their immortality or something. Like they kind of. They explain it in very indirect terms, like, "Oh, we must kidnap Iron Fist to complete the plan," and it's like, it's nobody cares. That was the biggest problem: is that the Hand has yet to be a compelling force of evil in this series.
What was their plan in season 2 of Daredevil? Because it was to get the Black Sky, which turned out to be Elektra, but
right.
They seem to remember Daredevil and Elektra were investigating that giant gaping hole under that building in Hell's Kitchen.
Yes, that is actually addressed.
Oh, it is. Okay, all right, good.
Yep. That's actually the MacGuffin of the series, is this kind of substance that's down there that I think it makes people live longer, but then I don't really know. Sigourney Weaver's character it does, of her own accord, resurrect Elektra, and that makes the other members of the Hand really upset.
So Sigourney Weaver is in this, and it's a substance, a special substance that people are trying to find. Are we talking by any chance little Avatar references here?
Yeah.
No, it's not unobtainium.
Yeah, it's not unobtainium.
So it may be unobtainable.
I mean, it's when I was watching the second half of the season, I was like, "Oh, I don't care, man. I just want to watch." The meat of this show is the Defenders. Like, if this show was just the 4 of them going around fighting crime and stuff, that would be fucking awesome. But then they got to put this whole Hand plot of trying to find this thing that nobody cares about, and I don't know if I was not focusing on the show or what, but that something about the plot of the villains in the second half of the season really was not compelling at all. But again, in season 3 or in episode 3, you get there's that in the boardroom of this corporation that they go to. There is a really terrific hallway fight, as is the status quo for the Marvel Netflix shows now. And there's some great stuff. Like Danny Rand walks in, it's like, oh, I know that you guys are the Hand. I'm gonna find all of you and I'm gonna expose you. And then Sigourney Weaver's like, well, you're a fucking dumbass for coming here and saying that. And then he starts fighting people. And then Luke Cage just kicks the door down. And then like he whips around and 3 guys have guns. And like they point at him and Luke Cage stands up and blocks it. And Danny Rand stands behind him and uses him as cover while he fights off guys behind Luke Cage. And then, you know, Daredevil is Matt Murdock is talking to Jessica Jones. He's like, he hears a gunshot. He's like, let me borrow your scarf. And he puts it on to cover his face. And Jessica Jones is like, you look like an asshole. And he's like, well, it's your scarf. And like, there's so much great banter and chemistry between all 4 of these characters. And in episodes 1 or 3, 4, 5, sort of 6, there's a lot of that. And like, if the show was fueled mostly on how all 4 of those interact, it would be amazing. But
so let me ask you, rather than make an 8-episode miniseries of the Defenders coming together, what if they had just made like a 2.5-hour Marvel-style epic movie that brought them together?
Maybe. If they had changed the plot, yes. If they had not, then no.
The reason I'm asking is just because the way you're talking about what you're describing is an Avengers movie. Like of what you liked.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, again, this really is hamstrung by the plot with the Hand, which, again, I really don't see. There's nothing compelling about the Hand as a villain. It's like, oh, is this multinational organization? They're super evil, and they've been around for centuries. Like, that was one of the things. Like, they were responsible for Pompeii. It's basically Ra's al Ghul from Batman.
Yeah, that was a volcano.
Actually, that's almost literally the plot of Ra's al Ghul or Ra's al Ghul, depending on your preference, in Batman Begins. So like, oh, we've been around forever and we fuck up cities and we were responsible for all the big world events that caused civilizations to end. That's the Hand in Marvel's universe.
So by the way, my problem with the Hand is in the first season of Daredevil, I legitimately was like, ooh, the Hand's kind of intriguing because we didn't know too much about them. And it was like this group of ninjas who just came out of nowhere and killed people. And there's the whole thing about, the episode with Stick when he makes his appearance and he kills the what do you call it?
The black guy who's a child.
Yeah, and you're like, man, I mean, he has to be one cold motherfucker to kill a child without a reason.
Stick is a cold motherfucker. There's a scene where he's chained to a pole and someone is like, you're gonna die here tonight, old man. He's like, fuck that. He didn't actually say that, but he cuts off his hand and escapes.
Well, exactly. And
so that lets some amazing jokes on Reddit where it's like, oh, the Hand wanted to kill him, but I guess he gave them a hand. And like really horrible puns. So like Stick doesn't have he's one hand down now, but it was just like he is just hilarious.
I know that something happens to Misty in the same vein.
Yes,
I know that because that happened in the comics, and they actually repeated that in the show.
Yeah, Stick cuts off his hand, and it was so quick. I was like, wait, did he's cut off his fucking hand? And then there's a slow zoom on his hand on the floor while the grate.
Twitching.
Yeah, it's not twitching. But the grate on the wall is swinging back and forth. Like, oh, okay. The visual language of the show is telling me that Stick has escaped through that grate.
I think the cutting off of the hand scene worked best in Deadpool when he cut off his own hand and
his flipping Colossus off.
Yeah, it was left as a middle finger. Yeah, or which may or may not be a reference to an obscure early 70s movie called Sometimes a Great Notion, starring Henry Fonda and Paul Newman.
It's probably not, but
yes, probably not.
Just to explain,
that would require film knowledge, Ken.
That movie ends with Paul Newman taking the frozen hand of the dead Henry Fonda and sticking it to the top of a riverboat with the middle finger flipping off everyone as it drives.
That's pretty cool.
I mean, that's possible. Yeah, absolutely.
That movie is fascinating. It's probably one of the more entertaining movies you'll ever see about something that I morally disagree with, which the movie's all about being anti-union and how unions suck. which
Oh.
I completely disagree with that morally, and yet
Yes.
the movie's fucking great.
That's weird.
But in Defenders, it is worth watching at least the next few episodes just for some of the interplay between the characters, because they kind of the biggest relationships develop between Jessica Jones and Matt Murdock and Luke Cage and Iron Fist. Like, each of those pairs develop a sort of camaraderie that was really, really satisfying, especially Jessica Jones and Matt Murdock. Like, I would be totally on board with a Daredevil and Jessica Jones team up series, just because of how well Charlie Cox and Kristen Ritter interact with each other.
What if instead they have a series? What if instead of doing separate series for all these characters from now on, they just do a series that follows, like, it follows a story that could involve maybe an episode or two could be an arc involving a single character, but sometimes it could be all of them together or some of them.
I would see that. Like, but also I think Jessica Jones and Matt Murdock also have their own personal things to take care of. So to bring a second one in for the banter and the camaraderie would kind of ruin the thematic weight that both of those shows really have. Like, Jessica Jones, like, oh, I've been abused, I'm recovering from abuse, and I'm a private investigator. I think having a wisecracking lawyer with him.
Well, I'm not saying that they have to
kind
be
of
there in every episode. I'm saying it might be a way to keep the show fresh by having, not every single episode has to be the same thing.
Well, I mean, I can spoil this if you want me to, but the way that the Defenders ends leaves the show in an interesting place for how each of the individual shows will proceed from now.
Yeah.
So I'll spoil it if you want me to, but other than that, I'll leave it where it is.
I'll probably see it within the next week or two. So
okay. I will say that this ending it has both one of the most emotionally effective shots of the series, as well as one of the most disappointing shots of the series, all within 10 minutes. So
oh, wow.
You'll see what I mean when you watch it. You'll be like, oh, wow, that's really effective. And then you'll be like, come on, man, what the fuck? But I really love the use of color in the show. Every time, and I first noticed this in episode 3. I keep saying season, but episode 3, there's a establishing shot of a part of the city with a certain color scheme, and then the shot of the scene focusing on a specific character also has a very specific color scheme. Luke Cage's scenes have a yellowness to them. Jessica Jones have like a bluish purple. Matt Murdock's all are bathed in red, but it's all diegetic effects. Like, it's not like there's a filter. It's the shots with Luke Cage all have things that are yellow in the scene. And, Iron Fist usually wears kind of a greenish hoodie. And then when all four of them are together in the Chinese restaurant, you have greens and reds and yellows. And then the bar behind the counter has a blue light behind the liquor. So there's a huge amount of thought put into the color theming in this show, which I thought was pretty fucking cool.
Interesting. All right.
We like the theme too, right? We talked about this last night.
Yes, the theme song's pretty good.
The theme is really good.
I'm still a fan of the Luke Cage theme and the Daredevil theme.
You know what? The Luke Cage theme is honestly one of my least favorite. But I still like it a lot.
See, the thing is, the Luke Cage one is the one that is the most unlike the themes that the Marvel Cinematic Universe has been using, and I like the departure.
Okay.
And the hip hop element, I think, is really perfect in setting the tone for the show, and that's probably what appeals to me about it. Is it feels more original, whereas the others feel like a pastiche of something you might hear in a Marvel Cinematic Universe film.
That's fair, yeah, and I do like the Daredevil theme, and that theme I believe was composed by the same guy that did the Defenders theme. So those themes they sound similar for a reason.
Mm-hmm. So we'll go ahead now and move away from the Defenders. I'll bring some comments to the table once I've finished it, which I'll try to shoot for finishing it by the end of by next Wednesday.
Okay, I won't blame you if by episode 6 you're like, eh.
Well, I really should. It's only 8 episodes. It's like,
Yeah.
I mean,
And when I watched it, I was like, oh yeah, 8 episodes, cool. I can knock this out. And then by the end, I was like, I kind of wish it was 12.
I think what I really should do, I really should just do what I did with Iron Fist and commit and finish it in one night. Because with Iron Fist, I was like, I knew this.
Rip off the Band-Aid.
I was like, I know this is gonna suck. So I just devoted an entire like Friday night to Saturday, and I just like blew through the entire friggin' show. And when I was done, I was like, yeah, I'm glad I got that out of the way.
If it makes you feel better, Defenders never gets nearly as bad as Iron Fist was.
Well, I will say so far the Danny Rand stuff has not interested me in any way.
Danny Rand is really quick before we move on Danny Rand. The show.
Well, hold on. Before you go into this, the first 2 episodes of Defenders, what really puts me off of it is it feels literally like every scene with Danny Rand is like white people problem stuff. It's like, man, the world's just coming apart while they're in their fucking private jet having a conversation. It's like,
so Danny
really?
Rand. What?
I'm haunted by these traumatic visions that I have while I'm sipping champagne in my private jet.
Unfortunately, Danny Rand is still a shitty character, but the show seems, to its credit, does not want to move away with what they started in Iron Fist, and also seems patently aware of that fact. So everybody gives Danny Rand shit at every chance they get. Like, everybody shits all over this dude all the time. But there's a part where, like, kind of feels bad. It's like, he goes over, he's like, oh, so you punched a dragon, huh? That sounds like it hurt. And he kind of perks up, and it's like, yeah, you have no idea. So Danny is still a child in this show, but I think Marvel knows that he's a character that's difficult to like, so they kind of capitalize on that by A, throwing shade at every chance they get, and B, kind of letting him develop on his own as kind of like, he didn't get a chance to grow up because he was in Kunlun, so they let him do that on his own. So it still kind of sucks, but not in a way like Iron Fist, where the showrunners don't really even seem aware that this character fucking sucks.
Speaking of a character that fucking sucks, David and Goliath.
Not David and Goliath, David versus Goliath.
Oh, actually, I beg to differ. It's both. In IMDb, it is just David and Goliath. But for Netflix, it's David versus Goliath, Battle of Faith.
Battle of Faith. Ken was mad at me for this one.
I was, because you
were. I was mad at you for Kuso, though. This is fucking payback.
Well, you were selling it to me like it was going to be like this awesomely bad Christian epic movie with like bad CG action and stuff. And then I watched it, and first of all, the movie is 75 fucking minutes long. Yeah. The first hour of which is training montage.
So okay,
the entire first hour is literally David is being trained to be like a warrior, the ultimate warrior, which is interesting because that goes completely against what David is supposed to be in the biblical story.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't pretend to be a God-fearing Christian myself, but I know the story of David and Goliath, and it's the story of a fairly, a fairly humble boy who just happens to be braver than all the others, all the soldiers in the army, and willing to take on this big, massive, giant of a man, and cunning enough to know how that rather than get close, use your weapon that you can hit him from a distance.
Yes. So I want to be honest with you. I was talking about this movie while I was about halfway through watching it. I probably should have finished it before I suggested it. But I got this is a movie that I had to enjoy under a certain mindset, and when I was watching it, I was really into how bad it was, And you know how I am with bad movies, so I kind of jumped the gun. It's like, oh, it's amazing, you should watch it. And I forgot that it's not really your type of bad. So it really isn't. It really isn't Revenge Rakuso, as much as I would like to say that it was. I just kind of preemptively suggested it without realizing that this is not what you're about at all.
Yeah. So the first hour is training montage, and the next 15 minutes is a very quick and a very quick telling of the David and Goliath story. And Goliath is the one thing I found comically bad about the David and Goliath confrontation is in an early scene where you see Goliath killing like a bunch of dudes randomly. They shoot him from a shoulder height to make it look like he's ridiculously tall. And then when you actually see the fight of David and Goliath, it's just a kind of tall guy. It's not no one who's like massive.
Yeah, it's a very shitty forced perspective effect.
Yeah, well, it's forced perspective only in that first scene. In the scene when David fights him, they don't even attempt forced perspective.
Yeah, they just shoot him from the waist up, like you said. One of the things that I laugh the hardest at is that the shields are just very clearly cardboard that got painted.
Yeah, there's
really
spray
funny.
paint. Yeah, that and the swords wobble visibly in several scenes.
Yep. And during the final fight, David tries to block a shot from Goliath and just chops his shield in half, and he just kind of looks at it and goes, the top half just kind of swings off like womp womp, and then Goliath
got in a sand and gravel pit.
Yeah, and then Goliath throws his shield at David, and he gets out of the way, and then David is like, okay, I'm gonna take this, and he just picks it up. Like it's the fight scene is so poorly blocked, it's almost astonishing.
And the dialogue is
God, like a woman, desires a man with ambition.
Yeah.
That's an actual line, by the way.
Yeah, that is. It says here the director listed for the movie is Wallace Brothers.
Oh, not even Wallace Brothers, just Wallace Brothers?
It's Wallace Brothers, and this is the only thing that they've been credited with, apparently.
Yeah. Well, for good reason.
The screenwriters, Jeffrey Giles and Michael Lurie. Let's see what they are credited with. I'm going to guess it's probably nothing. Oh, wait a second. Hold on. Jeffrey Giles as a miscellaneous crew.
Jeffrey Giles, isn't his nickname Jay Giles?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Miscellaneous crew. Giles, what is that? Like,
listen to this. As a screenwriter, he wrote a movie called Night of the Dead, Night with a K.
Oh, yes.
And then he wrote David and Goliath. But he has 69 credits as worldwide distribution or worldwide sales or international distribution. So he's a fucking distributor, and he co-wrote the screenplay of this movie. And then the other one, Michael Lurie. What do we know about him? He is also oh my god, this movie is written by distributors.
Mm-hmm.
Because he has 49 credits as either worldwide distribution, international distribution, or worldwide sales. And the only screen credit he has is David and Goliath. So this is a Christian epic written by basically financiers.
It feels like that too. Now, yeah, Bill, if you get a chance, you should see what this is. Like I'm saying, it's going to be miserable. But now that you're reframing it as a movie made by distributors, like that makes it way more interesting.
It makes it interesting, but not enough to spend 75 minutes wasting your time.
I mean, not to mention that David looks like a fucking Hollister model.
Yeah.
I mean, okay, when I first watched this, my snap reaction was, this looks like a Judd Apatow movie where fucking Seth Rogen is a director who made a movie, and then we get to watch a couple of scenes from his fake shitty movie in a fucking Judd Apatow movie. And I was just waiting for David versus Goliath to come out and be like, surprise, it's a joke, it's a parody. But it's like a parody that's not funny.
Yeah.
But it's funny because it sucks. It's like, oh man, it's amazing, but it fucking sucks. It's terrible.
I would describe it as rancid.
It's pretty rancid.
It's just here's the thing: a bad good movie. This is not.
If I could go back in time and reframe this into a Hawk and Ken survive segment, I would.
In which case, we would be watching a week of bad Christian movies.
Let's do it. Let's do it, Ken. Let's watch a week of bad Christian movies. I can name 5 right now. God's Not Dead, God Not Dead 2, Hangman's Curse, Left Behind, and this.
Since I've seen all but one of those, fuck no.
Which one haven't you seen?
Hangman's Curse.
That's the one that sucks the least.
Yeah, well then, let's focus on the ones that are really bad. Like War Room.
We'll find them.
All right. So now that we've talked about that, just so you know, Hawk, we're going to talk Miss Sloane next week.
Okay, that's good.
Because then you'll have my movie to talk about too.
Okay.
But the movie that we're going to end with, though, as part of our exchange, was Brian De Palma's Blowout.
It's a good movie.
Now, have you seen Blowout, Bill A?
No, I feel bad that I haven't seen it, but I have seen the Brian De Palma documentary, De Palma, where he covers Blowout.
Now, it seems to me like you might have seen this. I have not seen Antonioni's film Blow Up from 1966.
Yeah, no, I haven't seen that either. I know the movie you're talking about. But.
Yeah, I was gonna. It seems like a movie that you might have seen at some point. But Blow Up. For those who don't know, this movie is sort of a thematic remake of Blow Up. In that the concept of Blow Up is this guy takes a photograph and he believes within the photograph he has spotted a murder plot.
Yes.
Versus.
Okay.
Yeah. Versus in Blowout. John Travolta is a sound recorder for a low-budget motion picture studio, and he's out in a park one day recording natural sounds to put into this horror movie when he inadvertently records the sound of an assassination attempt. Mm-hmm. Successful assassination, actually. And what happens is he thinks he hears audibly a gunshot and then a tire blowing out and then the car driving into the water. And the movie stars Travolta, and Nancy Allen is this, I guess you could call her a prostitute for all intents and purposes, who basically she is hired by some not so reputable people to ingratiate herself with this politician, and something embarrassing was going to happen, and she was going to be caught with him. But instead, it turns into a repeat of Chappaquiddick, where where Kennedy was in a car accident, and he walked away while the girl he was banging died in the accident. Instead,
you mean Ted Kennedy?
Ted Kennedy. Yeah, I just said Kennedy. But anyway, in this case, it's the reverse, where the prostitute survives and the politician dies. Hmm. And from there, it just becomes a fascinating kind of. What I love about Blowout is it's a movie with style to spare. De Palma just puts all his effort into this theme of sound. The sound design in it is just amazing from beginning to end.
So is the shot composition. Like, one of my favorite shots in the film is where you have an establishing shot of the bridge, but in the foreground you have an extreme close-up of a toad.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Really great stuff, and the casting, of course, is spot on. Nancy Allen is, I would say, probably perfectly cast as the airheaded, just kind of not so bright,
frustratingly airheaded.
Oh yeah, well,
character is vapid as fuck,
and I think rightly so. That character is De Palma is he's not a filmmaker so much as an opera director. And his characters always have these very strong highs and lows. And so when he has a character who's a prostitute, he goes full out to make that, the most airheaded, just you know what you could argue that it's sexist, and it's because it is.
Mighty Aphrodite, Woody Allen's Mighty Aphrodite with Mia Sorvino.
Oh God, yeah, that's another perfect example.
She's like, "Hey, Lenny." That's how she talked.
Oh God,
she was very airheaded in that movie. Yeah.
Yes, and then of course John Lithgow is the opposite in that he's the conniving, evil political assassin who he's hired. He's not hired to be an assassin, but he goes once the killing starts, he's not going to stop, and he decides to cover up an attempt to kill Nancy Allen by creating a series of sex crimes through.
Yeah, like he's like, well, so nobody suspects us killing this lady. I'm gonna fucking kill a bunch of ladies that look like her, so it looks like a serial killer. Which is pretty funny because immediately before seeing Blowout, I saw a trailer for Daddy's Home 2. Which, have you guys seen this trailer yet?
Yes.
Where John Lithgow is Will Ferrell's character, and he's a fucking idiot. So like, it was funny the dichotomy seeing the John Lithgow as this total dingus, and then John Lithgow as a stone cold killer.
And which
made it very effective.
Yeah, it's the strength of Lithgow as a performer in that he can do broad comedy like the best of them, but he can do these just horrifyingly creepy characters. This might be Lithgow's creepiest performance.
Yeah,
and
I would have liked to see more of him, honestly.
Oh yeah, he's not in the movie a lot, but when he's there, he makes a lasting impression. I think. Hold on a second.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
It's weird. The battery percentage on my computer is dropping, even though it's plugged in, so I'm a little worried. Sorry about that.
Too.
Anyway, So Lithgow though. I'm trying to think. I'm going through his filmography now to see if there's any truly disturbing roles he's had that match this.
He was in another De Palma movie. What was it? Raising Cain.
Yeah, but I mean, it's not. He's not as. He's not.
Really? He's not as unhinged.
He's not the unhinged one in that.
Oh, really. I thought that was okay.
Obsession is what you're thinking of. I think.
Maybe, I don't know. I'm just listing movies.
Yeah. Hold on, I'm pulling that up. I'm pretty sure it's Obsession.
Obsession.
That sounds. Obsession. Yeah, that's a De Palma. Yeah. Basically, he becomes obsessed with a woman who kind of looks like his wife in that movie, and he's creepy, but not like Burke in Blowout. I guess the only thing he's done that you could put in that same category maybe is Lord John Warfin in Buckaroo Banzai, John Warfin / Dr. Emilio Lizardo.
This was one of his first films too, so it's impressive that he was able to deliver a performance with that much weight to it this early in his career.
It's interesting because his film career, I mean, he acted in a handful of films in the 70s, but really he was more of a stage actor. And I think that it's perfect choice of casting because De Palma knew, with his stage background that he could play big. And that's what De Palma demands as a director. He wants performers who are willing to reach for the sky in their performance. Mm-hmm. And he gives them that. I think the only other De Palma movie that I've seen, I mean, there's quite. He did so many movies in the 80s and 70s that some of them are hard to get a hold of, but this and Body Double are probably his two most the movies he made with the least studio pressure on him, and as a result they're also his most fucked up movies. Like there's a scene in Blowout where this prostitute is she just finishes servicing the sailor, and they make a whole big deal of her having to go to the bathroom to brush her teeth and spit out.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
Spit out the jizz?
Thank you, Hawk.
Because he
You need to
did
clarify.
Nut Job too.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
Because you guys can say that sailor's nutty by nature.
See now Hawk has completely redeemed himself with that payoff to his jizz talk.
Versus now of course though, Blowout is the classy one. Body Double is the body double.
Body Double's fucked up.
Yeah, Body Double has the scene where the guy is literally fucking the girl with the power drill, fucking her to death with it. Oh, that movie's
Jesus Christ, Ken.
You've never seen it, have you, Hawk?
Yeah, but you just like chuckle like, oh, he fucks to death with power drill, and then you just start laughing. Out of context.
Well, he's laughing out of shock.
Because it's just such an over-the-top choice. And you know, the thing is, these two movies share a lot in common because both films have a very much focus on low-budget horror films as a background theme. And in fact, a great deal of Body Double turns out to be turns out to be part of a horror film, which is a fascinating choice. Hawk, you need to see Body Double.
Sounds like I do.
I'm gonna try to find where that's located because that movie is if you enjoy Blowout, then this one would blow you out of the water.
Yeah, you totally sold me on that one scene.
And that's just one. All right, well, that's all we have to talk about on this virtual Pubcast episode.
All right.
So bye.
Bye.
We're trying to think of a funny way to end this Pubcast, so